Hey, welcome back. My name's John, welcome to the channel. It is, for continuity, Monday the 30th of June and it's just after 11 o'clock. Today is going to be 20, can you see that? 26 degrees, as high as 30 by about 3 o'clock this afternoon. And we won't complain about that, it's called summer, it's beautiful. I have a bunch of notes here on the screen that I'll timestamp as usual along the bottom, but let me tell you, we talk briefly about my father's inheritance money. Let me tell you a little bit about selling stuff over the weekend, how that went. I'm going to kind of give you a quick update on the HMRC situation that I've had. Brief conversation about Glastonbury. And last but not least, the doctors. What's happening with the doctors? So, 5 topics to cover today. Whilst I take a little walk around some of the wooded area near my home, just for a little bit of shade. Alright, so first and foremost, inheritance money. After just over a year now managing my father's estate, which is a small amount of cash in his bank accounts and a house, I have managed to resolve the cash situation. Probate, as you call it in the UK, that you need to go through, which is handled by a lawyer to go to court and represent you and then free up the money from the holdings of the bank. That money is divided between me, my brother, my sister and my niece, my brother's daughter. So a very small amount of my cash, and I had a text message from my sister and she said she was feeling a little bit sad about how all that it felt that was left at this point of my father was just this little bit of money, and I can understand that and relate to that. But on the positive, my dad was able to work really hard for his life, over multiple jobs. I don't recall a time my dad was ever really out of work. He worked multiple jobs at times to keep us afloat, and I think from all his hard work and effort, the fact that he was able to leave something behind for his kids is a real testament to the man that he is. So as I responded back to my sister, simply to say how grateful I was that he was able to leave something for us, and how it certainly won't replace him, but he's left something behind to help us change our lives, turn our lives around in some shape or form. And I just mean by that adding something to what I've already saved and worked for. I'm immensely grateful for. And so to other people who are experiencing something similar, I know I've spoke to people that have told me parents or family members have passed away recently and they're also in the same path that we've been navigating. I'll say this about it all: I no longer feel the real sadness of losing my father. I now start to think a bit more fondly about the situation and respect the fact that he was able to work so hard for us, save up and leave something behind. So I'm very grateful for that. Okay, so that was arranged, finalised last week after a year. A year just blows my mind that it takes that long. I remember at the time a friend who had recently lost their own father saying to me, expect this to last between 9 and 12 months. And at the time I kind of thought that seems like a long time, but no, he was absolutely right. He was absolutely spot on. Just over a year, and we're now starting to get to the point where the workload that's had to go into just managing this period is coming to an end. So I thought I would give you a little bit of an update on that. And then in terms of selling stuff, look at this little bit over here, look at this little bridge. I'll turn this round, little bridge over the road, and you can just see the water. This is where the ducks and the geese sneak from one field to another. Come through this little spot here and they swim down here, and then it takes them across and into a new field underneath that bridge, which I'll show you in a second. But selling stuff, I had a friend come at the weekend, same friend I went to the Viagra Boys gig, if you remember in that video. My pal who brought his 15-year-old son to the gig, and we had that big night out with his first ever concert. So that friend, he's got 3 kids, he came to visit Yvonne and I at the weekend, drove to see us, which I appreciate because he's not 5 minutes away. Look at the water here. Look. This is the big lake at the other side, you can kind of just see it. And all the geese and swans swim through here. Yeah, so he drove to see us at the weekend, which I greatly appreciate. And friends take the effort to come and see you. So it was lovely to have him come and hang out. Look at that, look. Look at that view, and the water down there. Some of the geese swimming over. I haven't got any food for them today. Yeah, so he came to see us at the weekend and took away a carload. I'll put it on screen so you can kind of see. But took away a big monitor screen that I was using for work. Took away 2 mountain bikes, one of mine's and one of Yvonne's, for his kids. Some helmets that I had for them. And what else? An old amplifier and some speakers that I'd used to write dance records on many years ago that were just lying about in the garage, so I hope the kids will get some enjoyment out of them, setting them up and blasting some music. What else went? Bag full of booze. His wife works in a school and often do raffles and charity things, and seeing as Yvonne and I have basically had a box of alcohol in our garage. It's been in there for about 2 years, gifts of things that people may have given me from past jobs, Christmas gifts, etc., that I just couldn't drink. And so rather than see them go to waste, they'll go into a charity bin, so that's good. We'll get a charity raffle for something for the school. I'm trying to think what else. A battery and a solar panel that I was using for festivals, he's taken that away, which is great. I can't think of what else. There was some other stuff, but you know, it was funny, right, because he's a good friend of mine, and when we packed up all the car, he kind of said to me, I feel a bit weird about this, taking your stuff. And it was funny because I was thinking the opposite. I was like, I'm over the moon to see this stuff go, particularly to somebody that I care about, a good friend and his family. And also just knowing that it's going to a home that you know, right? So you kind of know the stuff's going to get used. The kids were super excited to get the bikes, the 2 mountain bikes, which I was amazed were in the car, and the screen, big monitor screen. I mean, what can I do? I can't take it with me. So I was very happy to see that stuff go to a great house, a great friend. And it's just funny that in these situations nobody quite knows how to act, right? Because he's worried about me and thinking, oh, taking this guy's stuff. And in the same response, I'm like, oh, I don't want this guy to take stuff that he doesn't want. But at the same time, if the kids get used out of it, but it was, we talked about it. When we eventually managed to be adults and say, look, I feel great about this, you feel great about it, everybody's happy, so let's all go away feeling good. But it's funny, those little interactions you have, even with people you know, trust and care about, there's still always a little bit of awkwardness. So anyway, lots of stuff gone. Yvonne and I, after he had left, were like, yeah, looked round the house, could actually see some space for a change in some areas. So that was very cool. Right, HMRC. Let me tell you a little bit about the HMRC. I posted a video that went viral some weeks ago where I was making an effort to try and pay tax. I was in full-time employment, so of course I was being taxed from that job. However, it was an international business and they weren't so clued up at times on making payments, and one of those was from my pension. So I was making some checks on my pension, and it seems that maybe some of the money I was invested into my pension wasn't being taxed correctly, so that's what I was trying to resolve. But over and above that, I had a little bit of a side hustle going in the form of Twitch, and I was streaming live on Twitch and making a small amount of earnings. So I was trying to also declare that money so that I was on the right side of tax implications. So I hired an accountant to do the work for me. They've submitted the paperwork, and on Saturday I received a letter from the HMRC So that kind of made me a little bit giggle a little bit. Look at this walk that I've came through. There's a little log here for just sitting. I'm just going to take a seat on it and look out for the water. Yeah, so let's see, HMRC. So I'm trying to make sure I'm paying the right levels of tax. So I got a letter from the HMRC at the weekend. I opened it up and I thought, well, this is them probably responding. And in classic fashion, just everything that I would have expected. I was potentially expecting a small return. Instead, I've received a letter from the HMRC to tell me that I owe them money. Of course. What would you expect? However, in the letter, what it states is that they have discovered that I was in employment with a company in 2022. That business, a nationwide energy utility company that you would all be familiar with. That energy company, they are saying that I worked there in 2022 and that I owe several £1,000s worth of tax. I was made redundant by that business in 2020. So I wasn't working there in 2022. So now I've got to go and get this fixed. So do you know when you try and reach out and do something, try and take the right steps, try and do the right thing, and then what you get back is actually just like a counter response to all of that and never anything clear? This is one of these examples. So me trying to make sure I've paid the right enough tax, checking on this pension issue because I've been taxed incorrectly from the pension, and from that it's resulted in me receiving a letter to say that I was in employment in 2022 for a business that made me redundant in 2020. So I'm going to try and now resolve that issue as quickly as possible. I've reached out to my accountant. I need to go when I get home now and dig through paperwork to see if I can find my P60 from when I left that business in 2020, but that's just more fun and games, right? Nothing's ever straightforward. So I'll give you an update as soon as I can on the full outcome of the HMRC, because people have been asking me what happened to that. It's still rumbling on, and rather than me just rabble about it from time to time, I've just kind of stayed quiet until I had more info. But more info has been received, and that's that I owe more money. Of course. Let's talk very quickly about Glasgow. I think I just stung myself with some needles. You know, like these things. Evil suckers. I think I just stung myself in the back of the leg. What is it? Is it a dandelion you're supposed to get to rub on that? Like dandelion leaf of is this me going into my 9-year-old, I know how to navigate the woods when I used to run about and playing soldiers with pals? I think it's that. So Glasgow, a lot of controversy about Glastonbury over the last couple of days with the whole Bob Vylan, the performance and what he shouted and everything else. Now, I didn't see it, I never watched it. I'm watching the BBC, so I don't really care. But torn on Glastonbury because I went there in 2022 and also in 2024 with friends. They had been many times before and took us, and we had an amazing time, really truly an amazing time, and I loved the festival. But when I was there, I did notice the elements of political biasry posting within the festival. It's clearly a very left-leaning festival, but to me, I just kind of shrug these things off, don't pay attention. If a band mentions something, I just kind of tut, like, you know, it takes me back to the days of like hearing like U2 or Coldplay lecture at you. Just kind of think, oh god, I can't really be bothered with this. Most of the bands I've been into over the years tend to stay firmly away from politics rather than divide their fan base. They tend to just ignore what's happening politically and stick to the music, and I've always appreciated that. But when you go to the likes of Glasgow, you kind of expect these things. But I think at the weekend, it feels like it's just stepped one foot firmly in a very politically driven topic, and that's been broadcast by the BBC, and so now I guess the questions of biasry or two-tier start to rise up. But what a sad state of affairs that people can't just go to a music festival, get away for the weekend, forget about what's going on in real life, especially when you're paying close to £500 for the experience. I looked at the ticket prices recently and see how they had quickly ran up over the years. Over the last 4 or 5 years, they've increased in price It's been rather wild to see, from a couple of £100 to close to £500 in the space of 3-4 years. When you think back to the 70s when it started, it was like £1 to get in, of course, inflation. But it's turned into a real corporate entity at this point. I think you can understand that it is very corporate driven, sponsorships, TV networking, broadcasting, and then obviously the lineup. Sad. We were expecting to try and go this year. We tried for tickets, it didn't happen, and we just said, oh well, fair enough, it wasn't for us. Not gutted about it, it's just what happens. But then having, with hindsight, reading about what's going on at the weekend, I kind of feel like, well, maybe we dodged one there by not going, right? What's for you won't go by you, as they say. So shame for Glasgow. But this is what happens. Everything has to turn into politics, doesn't it? Can't just go to a festival. And then lastly, the doctors to finish this off. So still got 2 kidney stones on my left side. Been waiting since last November for an appointment for a sound treatment to break them up. Appointment's been cancelled twice. Then I see, statistics about, we've reduced the numbers and appointments are improving, and I think, well, not here. 2 appointments still waiting. Received another letter from the doctors, NHS, over the weekend to tell me, yeah, you need to have this treatment. We'll get back to you soon. They've now sent me 3 of those letters, 3 letters to tell me that I need this treatment. I'm like, I know, I'm waiting for you to do the treatment, but never an actual confirmed appointment that I can go and have the treatment done. So I've kind of become comfortable in the fact that, spin around and see the river here, that little bridge across, look at the colour of it in the woods. And then that's the river. And just in case you were wondering, there's a little sign here, not to go swimming. Alright, let's carry on. So yeah, I've received these letters from the hospital, well, this letter that I'm now waiting for this appointment to get booked, so we'll see what happens with it. Hopefully I'll get in touch, but I'm kind of I've resided in my mind that we'll just be leaving the country without having the medical treatment, and if I need to do something when I'm away, we'll do it. But I feel like I'm not going to hear from the NHS on this topic before it becomes time to exit, so we'll just deal with that. Sometimes you just can't wait around for everything, right? It comes a point when you kind of need to just keep moving forward, and that's kind of what we're doing. So this is Monday, little update on what's going on. I'm going to head back now after my walk and get on with selling some more things online. So that is Monday, the 30th of June, last day of June before we turn into July. My dad's money sorted, selling stuff at the weekend, pretty grateful of all of that. The HMRC topic, Glasgow, and the medical situation. So that's today for you. Let me know down in the comments, did you see any Glastonbury? Are you watching any of it? What do you think about the festival and the news that's came out of it? Does that surprise you at all? Or is it already what you kind of believed about the festival? And then some of those other topics, you can let me know what you think of those. But carry on with my woodland walk on the way home, and we'll see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know down in the comments what's going on with you. See you in the next one.